Now it's time to add different equations, and especially some percentages and interests, so that we can calculate out from where we are from January 2026. Since we did pull down some of our data, let's go ahead and get rid of it because we want to add some equations to this that show us what it looks like when we add cost of living adjustments and others. So let's keep everything in January 2026 and delete anything else that goes down. So these are our major subcategories of debits. Of course, these are found by adding up the different parts of each one, which we have hidden. In order to get debits, we've got to add up all the bigger categories from housing, food, health, all the way over to hobbies. Now, in order to do that, we need to change a couple things. First, we have to make sure that we don't add the columns in between that we've hidden because those are already added into these. So I'll show you how you can mess that up, but also how you can get it correct. So this debits of January 2026 should be equal to the sum of housing, H2, notice how Excel shows you what you're adding, plus R2. If you did a colon here, like colon R2, you're going to add everything hidden between these two, all these subcategories here under housing. We've already counted them in this total. So rather than a range, we're going to do each of our super categories under, we've got plus, we've got hygiene next at AE2. Oh, we forgot health. I can't see it, what it is, because this is in the way. So let's try this again. We've got H2, R2, X2. Again, equals, debits equals sum H2 plus R2 plus X2 plus AE2. Just keep on going. AO2 plus AV2 plus AW2 plus AX2 plus, almost done, BK2 plus BL2 plus BM2 plus 3 more. It's a long equation. BN2 plus BO2 plus, oops, I just messed that up, plus BO2 plus BP2, and finally plus BQ2. Let's look at this equation. This is very long. We've got H2, R2, X2, AE2. You get the idea. All of these should be added with pluses, no colons, because we've already done the in-between. Once you see all those, you can hit enter. Now, obviously, anyone hopes that our income is not exceeded by our debits. And in this case, it looks like we've almost got $600 extra here. So why don't we add a new column, take away this black background to make it white, and we can do black, and we can call this savings. Now the savings each month should be equal to income minus debts or debits. So in this case, we can say savings is equal to D2 minus H2. Hit enter. We can see we have $536 left over from January 2026. We're going to put that somewhere, but first, let's talk about COLA. COLA stands for cost of living adjustment. In the United States, it's a really important concept that shows how much things have gone up each year. It's very rare for things to go down in price. In fact, most things go up in price. You might think that inflation and rising costs can be a bad thing. Well, one of the things that I've heard often around economics and politics is that having debt makes us work harder. So I want you to imagine if you won the lottery today or tomorrow and you got $50 million, even $1 million, your push and drive to work would go way down, right? But if you owe money, let's say on a house, credit cards, education, whatever, it pushes you to work harder. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that there's a cost of living adjustment each year. And the federal government actually releases this data because it's very important to people who are retired. How much has their cost of living gone up when often they're on a fixed income? Well, we know statistically, on average in the United States, the cost of living adjustment goes up 2.5% each year. Here we are doing this month to month. So how would we get, let's open our calculator here, how would we get 0.025 or 2.5%? How would we get that per month? It's this simple. You divide it by 12. We get this pretty long decimal, 0.0020833333. Let's minimize that. And what we're going to do, we're going to unhide all of these in between subcategories. And we're going to go to our first one and say, if I pay $1,700 a month for my mortgage, and it's going up 2.5% each year, how would I get how much it goes up on average with COLA each month? Well, we're going to multiply it times itself times 1.0020833333. Okay, here's that equation. The number, how much the mortgage is, that month, times 1.00, and I did it wrong. You know what? Let me delete this, or actually copy and paste it. It's not this month we're calculating, it's the next month. We're saying the next month's mortgage is equal to last month, or K2, times 1.0020833333. That's going up an average about $4 a month. All right? We can take this new equation we just made and apply it to everything after that. Watch this. I pull it over to the right. Every single one of these calculations now has the same equation we just did, but it's applied to that column or field specifically. So we finished up our housing. We didn't have to do anything to rent because there's no rent there for me, but we should have that equation over there anyway. You can also go left with it too. There's our equation. Therefore, if we pull this down one, we can see that 2.5% cost of living adjustment, or COLA, on average is costing our housing about $5 a month. But we got to do this every single time. Let's unhide those columns, let's say for food. So let's just pull that equation over. Watch this. It did it. However, we did apply this equation to a super category, and we don't want to do that yet. So we're going to leave that blank. Let's go through and look for our hidden columns. We know that Y is not followed by AF, so that means health has some hidden columns in here. Let's just go ahead and unhide everything. Okay? Unhide all of your subcategories. I believe I stopped here. You should keep going. You need to break up education, especially transit. I didn't break it up. I just put in a number for the sake, because of this video, trying to keep it lower. But we can, once again, come down here. We've got that equation. No need to type it again. We can just pull it all the way across here, and it's going to apply to every single one of those columns above it. Now, because it's such a low amount per month, some of these are not going to go up very much. You might have to pull them down a few months to see that change. Now that we've had this across all of our categories of debits, we need to make sure that we didn't copy it for these. So let's just delete any of those super categories because they're already being calculated in their subs. All right, and I filled these in specifically, so it's okay that they're like that. You need to go through and break up each one all the way to CZ. So now what we can do is this. Health goes down to the next February 2026. And you can see that by copying that equation down, it's now in the next row for us, or February 2026. Do the same thing across. Food went up $1 in 1 month. Hygiene's probably unchanged. And phone, probably unchanged. Even though there's a few cents being added. And we've got all these things we just did for debits. Watch this. We are going to take every single row across debits and pull it down really far. How far? Just keep on going. Let's go to maybe row 400, maybe row 500, and we'll really see that inflation happening over a long period of time. Okay, we scroll over here. We've pulled all of those equations down. It's including, look at that, by the year, who knows right now, we don't have it plugged in. We've got to go all the way left to our month and year and drag this down as well, all the way down to the 500 or wherever you want to go, and see what year and month we're in. We're all the way to July 2067. Now, at my age, I'm going to probably retire somewhere around 2060. If you're younger than me, if you're in your late teens or early 20s, you're probably going to keep working until past 2067. Okay? So we went far here. We said that with a 2.5% COLA on average each year, you take 4,064. By the time you get to the next January, inflation has gone up about $100. But that sounds like some bad news, but guess what? We got to do the same thing to our jobs. The average increase for most people with a college degree or some college degree is 3.5%. Luckily, that's higher than the cost of living adjustment, but that means it's only 1% actual increase. So let's go ahead and talk about that. If 3.5% raise annually is the average for how much we get paid each year more, we can say 0.035 or 3.5% divided by 12. And that gets us that monthly increase in our income. So let's go ahead and do that and say February's main pay for job 1 would be equal to last month's pay, or E2, multiply, you do the asterisk, times itself, so 1 point, and then we get that decimal from dividing 3.5% by 12. That'd be 0.002916. 0.002916. Add a few more 16s there. And we can see that a 3.5% annual increase in our job is about $10 a month. That's pretty nice. So let's take this equation, pull it over, the little square on the right bottom of the cell. Look at that. It applied the same equation for our other two sources of income. Well, guess what? Let's pull this equation down that's adding these three together. Let's pull it down to the next month. Check it out. So not only did we pull all of our debits all the way down to row 500, well, let's do the same thing with these too. So what we're going to do is highlight all of these. That's our savings, our income, and our 3 jobs. And let's pull it down to row 500. Notice how Excel starts to slow down for you when you get to the end of your Excel spreadsheet. So we've got, let's review, debits including all these sub-categories, right? Which we can go ahead and hide again to make this look way easier to traverse. Okay, again, you're going between your super categories or your bigger categories and hiding all of these subcategories because we've already filled them in. Again, that's highlight all of them, right click, hide. Here we go. Now we can see, because of our color coding and bolding, all of our major categories of debits. I think there's 14 or 15. They add up here. It goes up every month, every year, just like it should with cost of living adjustment. And luckily with a 2.5% cost of living adjustment, but a 3.5% increase in our income, you can see that we're making a little bit more than we're losing each month. In fact, look at that. Our savings is going up because our income is going up at a higher rate than our cost of living adjustment. So that begs the question, what do we do with this savings? This is what I really want to focus in on. Once you get past all of this stuff here, you're doing your best to save money, you're doing your best to make money, especially as you're younger. It's easier to work younger than it is to work older. What do we do with this savings? Well, we're going to see what happens with the 3 major types of savings or investments that you can make in our country, the US. Now, we're not doing this dark black background. We're going to go back to, well, that's the text is white. We're going to make that text black or automatic, and we're going to make the background white. However, this is part of our net worth. It's just broken up into three. And those three, of course, would be the stock market. Let's say US stock market, retirement accounts, and housing. Okay, and what we've covered in this course so far is that each of them goes up on average in the United States. Housing is 4% per year, retirement is 7%, and US stock is 10% per year. And that is an average from 1920 to 2020. So if you have extra money, it's best to put it in stocks first. However, as we go from working in our teens all the way to retirement, we should be putting money into these two as well. So first we should put money into housing, and then retirement, and then whatever's left over into stock. Let's say we skip these two for now just to be simple. We can say that let's put in January 2026 our leftover, our savings of income minus debt, and that would be $536. So we can say that our stock market in January 2026 is equal to F2 if we just put it all in there. But here's where it gets interesting. How do we calculate the next month? This is pretty awesome. We say February 2026 stock is equal to last month, or C2, times 10% interest or accrued savings, or how much you're making on your stock, divided by 12. Let's do that again. Go back to our calculator. We'll say 0.01, which is 10%. Sorry, my bad. No, it's not. 0.1 is 10%. And we want to divide that by 12 months. So it's looking like every month our stock is going to go up 1.00833333. Let's go ahead and put that in there. 1.00833333. Let me double check my equation here. Got it right. Hit enter. So our stock went up on its own $4. We did nothing to make $4. That's nice. We need to get rid of those decimals. It's not working. Let's try this again. Make it dollar amount and get rid of the decimals. All right. Problem here. It's not just how much we had last month and how much interest we earned, which was $4, but it's also plus what we're saving that next month, and that would be F3. Check this out. We started with 536. The next month is 536 times 1.008. That's our interest rate we earned, plus our new savings amount. Pull that down. Keep going down until 500. Now you're going to see something you haven't seen yet, possibly. What are all these hashtags? That's Excel telling us that it's run out of space for these bigger numbers. So let's double click between our columns. Look at this. If you put in about $500 extra every month for about 50 years, you would retire with $10.7 million. Okay? That's what I wanted to show y'all. Is that whether you're putting your extra money or your savings each month all into the stock market, some people do that. They don't put any money into housing. They don't put any money into retirement. This is their retirement. They're doing this, and that would be equal to what your net worth would be. So if we take away things like cars, electronics, campers, things that we have of value, and we look at the three major parts of investments, again, stock, retirement, and housing. You take what you have extra every month and you put it into these investments, and then you can pull that down and you can see, okay, where am I going with this? So that's what I want you to do. I want you to go through here and pull all of those down to retirement. Now, the third part of your project 2 is to make meaning of all this data, and I'll give you an example of it. Let's say that under your food, and I've actually showed this to friends. I just put, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Between food and health, we've got all of the subcategories of food. Let's say that you are of age to drink, and every month you spend, oops, hit insert here. We just want to do one more here. Let's say that every month you spend $150 going out with friends, going to the bar, going to the club, whatever it may be. Now, depending on which city you live in, this could be really high or really low. So we added a subcategory to food, but our equation does not include it yet. So we need to change our equation to AB2. So now we're including alcohol. We need to pull over, copy over that cost of living adjustment. And what we can do is pull this down now, because we have a new equation in alcohol and we have a new equation in food. Why don't we just pull them all down together? All right, so we're going to pull them all down together. Okay, I'm letting that go. We can see by the year 2067 that bill would be $400 a month due to inflation. So now we have an additional part of food. It's included now. If we go left, by spending $150 a month, look how far our savings went down. Unfortunately, it looks like we're missing an equation. See how this went down then up? It looks like this did not make it with our food subcategory. AA3, let's see what this one says. AA4, yep, it doesn't have AB. We want AB in there. So this needs to be pulled down, and it'll pull in that AB, that new subcategory we added. The reason I'm showing you this one is because sometimes the easiest things to cut in our lives are the unhealthy ones. So let's say that you realize that you're spending $150 on drinks going out, and that lowered how much savings you have each month from in the 500s to the low 300s. So for part 3 of this, I want you to go in and say, okay, I'll make a New Year's resolution. When 2027 hits, and that would be row 14, let's highlight it, I'm going to cut back on going out, and I'm going to cut it down to $50. So it went from 150 to 50. All right. We take that and we pull it all the way down, even though it's already done it. I just want to show you how you pull it back down. And look at that. By lowering that cost there, we jump up and show that our savings goes back up. We don't have that 10.7. Oh yeah, we do. We went from 10.7 million to 10.2 million. So if we scroll way back up here, what I want y'all to do for part 3 is, let's say for job 1, you graduate in May of 2028 and you get a job where you're making more money. Well, you'd have to go into job 1 and say, okay, well, when I graduate, instead of $3,600 a month, I'll be pulling in $4,600 with my new role. You have another extra $1,000 from finishing school. We're putting that $1,000 extra into the stock market. Look how much we're putting in extra every month. We went from $500 to $1,600. And if we pull this down, go all the way down to row 500. Adding $1,000 a month almost doubled our savings in the stock market. So have some fun with this. One way you could split this up is to say, okay, I'm going to put my savings, I'm going to put a third in the housing market, a third in the retirement, and a third in U.S. stock. So what you could actually do is come over here and say U.S. stock is equal to savings divided by 3. So F2 divided by 3. Pull these over. So we've got that equation. Let's pull it over. So instead of, let's see, this does not work. Our savings is now, for retirement, it's F2 divided by 3. Get rid of that D2. Oops. See, this is very easy to mess up. And I just did that. F2 divided by 3. Let me undo because I just messed this up. All right. We need this to be F2 divided by 3. And the same here, F2 divided by 3. All right. And then again, we can pull this down and see what happens in the stock market if we're splitting up our savings into 3 different categories. But we still haven't gotten, we did our stock market equation, but there's a problem with it. Now we're saying the savings F3 divided by 3, and we got to multiply last month. So we're going to say the next month is equal to C2, so that's last month's stock market, plus F3 divided by 3, and all of this, we have to make sure we multiply last month's times 1.008 to 33333. I think that's the right equation. Let's check. 0083. Nope, I got it wrong. All right. I need to make sure this is multiply. So we're saying the next month is equal to last month's stock amount plus adding in the new month. And then we can pull that down. We'll pull it all the way down to row 500 and see we still get $6 million if we split our savings into 3 ways. Remember, retirement's on average 7% and housing is on average 4%. So we have to go here and say, for next month's retirement, which would be February, it's going to be equal to last month's D2 multiplied times itself times 7% annual divided by 12 months. Let's do that again. 0.07. We'll divide that by 12. So our new equation is 0.0583. 1.00583. And let's not forget, we're still adding. And this time we're doing F3. Oops. Careful how you type things in. F3 divided by 3. We've got this problem of having decimals. So click on your dollar amount, get rid of the 2 decimals. So this is our retirement growing. And lastly, we'll do housing. So again, February is equal to January, or E2, times 4% divided by 12. Let's go to our calculator. 0.04 divided by 12. All right. Pretty simple, 0.0333. So last month times 1.03333 plus F3 divided by 3, or our savings divided by 3. Now we see we have decimals here we want to get rid of, so select that whole housing category, select dollar amount, get rid of your decimals. It keeps the decimal amount, just doesn't show it. And we're going to pull these 2 down. Obviously, stocks can grow the fastest at 10%. Retirement will be next, and then housing will be last. And we see that there we go. Something's wrong here. Let's look at what happened. Housing is messed up. I messed up something here, so let's see what it was. I said that the February housing is equal to last month's housing times 1.003. See where I messed that up? Watch how different this becomes. Now I got to pull that back down because I missed a 0. We're not going to have $3 billion in a house. We're like, ooh, a lot of billion. Pull that back down. That makes more sense. Okay, let's go back up. Let's review what we just did. This is so easy to get lost. This is a very meaningful Excel sheet that should go to about CZ or past, and that's over 100 columns. Of course, mine doesn't because I didn't split these others up that you should. And what we can see by making meaning of the data, we're not going to go to net worth yet. That'll be the last thing we do, is we can see that a 10% stock, 7% retirement, 4% housing, income at 3.5% growth each year on average, and debt at 2.5% inflation per year. We built every single thing in here. Cost of living adjustments, raises, and investments. Again, that would be stock, retirement, housing. So that brings us back to the final one, which would be net worth. How do we get it? It's pretty simple. It's our last category. It is equal to all three of our investment types. And that would be C2 through E2. So it's equal to C2 colon E2. But you know what I messed up? I did not put in equals sum. We're adding a range here. It's really easy to mess up one character in Excel, so be careful with that. Hit enter. Our net worth, our first month, is $386. Pull that down, that equation. Look at that going up, up, up. So just in 1 year, our savings will go from $0 to $5,000 with investments in the stock market, retirement, and housing. Let's pull that all the way down. And then I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't leave your money in a savings account with your bank. Looks like that number's too big. That's a good thing. Look at that, 10.7. We saw that earlier. That's adding $6 million in the stock market, $3 million in retirement, and around $1.5 million in your housing market. Check that out. That is your net worth. Guess what? You're probably not starting at a net worth yet. A lot of younger folks actually owe more than they have, and that's okay. I didn't actually have a net worth till I was 32. And I had a lot of jobs working that to get it high up. All right, so let's review really fast. This is what you're going to be turning in. All these subcategories that are feeding into categories, that are feeding into super categories, that are feeding into the ultimate categories of net worth, income, debits, and your three types of investments. But there's more. Look at this over here. I put 0 for kids and pets, but I do want to have kids, and I'm definitely getting some pets soon. So you can go in and say, all right, I plan to have kids. I would like to have mine around 45, 46 years old. And for me, that would be around the year 2030. So I could go over in 2030. That'd be row 5051. And go up here and look at which one's kids. That's BS. No pun intended. And we are at row 50 with kids. And I've heard the average kid costs an extra $500 a month, and I want 4 kids, so watch this. Let me just add $2,000 here. What's going to happen to all my other numbers? Watch this. If everything's built in working correctly, we can see our savings dip into the negative in 2030. Now that starts to go down because we're making more money. The parentheses with a number mean that they're negative. So maybe it's not a good idea for me to have kids when I'm 45. Maybe I should wait a couple more years. Maybe I should wait until I actually have a cushion, have more invested in my house or in the stock market. So what I want you to do is do that. See what it would look like to get a dog at a certain point, to go on more or less vacation, to change your entertainment. So if we go to our subcategories, perhaps you get rid of certain streaming. Right now, I'm at $205 a month just with entertainment. I could definitely cut some of those things. And again, that's why we split them up. I could get rid of HBO Max and maybe Netflix, and that would save me $4 a month. And then that money in turn could go back into savings. If you get stuck with any of these, just rewatch part of the video. It's really easy to hit an error. And if you get stuck even more than that, don't forget at GTech that our tutoring center is fantastic when it comes to helping you do your projects and your work. So I'll leave you with that. Again, Try to go down to the year that you may retire. All right, and it's probably going to be at 70 or 75 years old because it's going to keep being extended out. And go in here and make changes. That's your part 3, making meaning of this data. Good luck, and of course, always reach out if you need help.